The Piedmont and Northern Railway was a heavy electric interurban company operating over two disconnected divisions in North and South Carolina. Tracks spanned 128 miles total between the two segments, with the Northern Division running 24 miles from Charlotte to Gastonia, North Carolina, including a 3-mile spur to Belmont. The Southern Division main line ran 89 miles from Greenwood to Spartanburg, South Carolina, with a 12-mile spur to Anderson. Initially, the railroad was electrified at 1,500 volts DC. However, much of the electrification was abandoned when dieselisation was completed in 1954. Unlike similar interurban systems, the Piedmont and Northern survived the Great Depression and was later absorbed into the seaboard coastline railroad in 1969. Although part of the railroad was abandoned between Greenwood and Gastonia Path and Belton to Anderson, much of the original system exists today as short lines. Once part of CSX, it is now owned by the North Carolina Department of Transportation, which awarded a contract in May 2010 to Patriot Rail Corporation to restore the track and operate trains along the 12 miles line. History. Although interurban railroads were not nearly as common in the sparsely populated and largely agrarian Deep South, there were a number of small electric networks constructed in the region throughout the early 20th century. Among them was the Anderson Traction Company, created on June 22, 1904 to build and operate within the city of Anderson. Eventually the railroad expanded to complete construction of an extension to Belton by 1910. The railroad was acquired by James B. Duke of Duke Power around the same time. On March 20, 1909, the Greenville, Spartanburg and Anderson Railway was chartered and presided over by Duke. The company used the Anderson Traction Company rails terminating at Belton as a starting point for northward construction to Greenville and construction toward Greenwood to the south, with both cities connected on November 1912. An extension from Greenville to Spartanburg was completed in April 1914. The North Carolina Division started with the Piedmont Traction Company, also owned by Duke, and completed its route between Charlotte and Gastonia, North Carolina on July 3, 1912. Both sections were electrified to 1,500 volts DC with power supplied from mainly hydroelectric sources. Additionally, both segments were built to steam road standards with minimal street running. Consolidation. The Piedmont and Northern was created in 1914 to consolidate both the Greenville, Spartanburg and Anderson, Indiana, South Carolina and the Piedmont Traction Company in North Carolina. In 1916 the railroad completed a 3-mile spur to Belmont, North Carolina. On numerous occasions the company sought to link the two disconnected segments and expand to Durham, North Carolina. However, the plans never materialized due to stiff resistance from the Southern Railway, which the P&N paralleled in both states. Although many railroads were hostile to the Piedmont and Northern, a friend was found with the Seaboard Airline, which connected with the P&N at Charlotte and Greenwood. Throughout its existence, the P&N stressed interchange traffic over its efficient electric lines, and with good reason. The railroad shared numerous interchanges with several major railroads. Network. The P&N's network in 1964 was connected to the Clinchfield Railroad, Carolina and Northwestern Railroad, Georgia and Florida Railroad, Norfolk Southern, Seaboard Airline Railroad, Southern Railway, Atlantic Coast Line Railroad, Greenville and Northern Railroad, Charleston and Western Carolina and Ware Shoals Coles Railroad. Though owned by Duke Power, the Piedmont operated coal trains over a branch from Mount Holly, NC, to Terrell, NC, supplying Duke Power's Lake Norman power plants. Extension plans to connect the North and South Carolina divisions between Spartanburg, South Carolina and Gastonia, NC, and to expand northwards towards Winston-Salem, NC, were successfully blocked by appeals by the Southern Railway and other entities in court cases in the 1930s, specifically Piedmont and N. Rye, COV. United States, 280 U.S. 469 and Piedmont and NR, COV. Interstate Commerce Commission, 286 U.S. 299. Traffic. The Piedmont, though involved heavily in passenger operations, was primarily a heavy freight carrier. The most important commodity transported was coal and coke, but also of significance were cotton and paper. Motive power. Fate of the rolling stock. Some of the electric locomotives were shipped to South America, the rest were scrapped. The diesels were taken over by the Seaboard Coast Line in 1969 after that railroad took over the Piedmont. Of them, all have been scrapped except for one S4 surviving in the U.S. on the Laurinburg and Southern, and 4 that were sent to Venezuela. The interurban number 2102, office car, Carolina, and caboose X23 are preserved and on display to the public at the Railroad Historical Center in Greenwood, SC. Remnants. Only 4 of the stations built for the Piedmont, designed by Charles Christian Hook, are still in existence today in North Carolina. The Thrift Depot in the Paw Creek community in Charlotte, North Carolina is the only remaining Piedmont station in Mecklenburg County, NC. It is presently for sale. In Gaston County, several structures are still standing. The depot in Mount Holly, North Carolina is still standing and is used as a hair salon. The former Piedmont depot in Belmont, NC has been restored and was a Piedmont museum until 2004, when the lease ran out and was not given extension by the owner. The former Piedmont station in Gastonia, NC, burned down in 1995. Lastly, the small depot of McAdenville, NC is still standing, though it has been relocated from its previous location. In South Carolina, at least 5 stations are still standing: Donalds, Hodges, Greer, Piedmont and Anderson. The abandoned depot at Pelzer burned on the night on January 26, 2011. In Piedmont, SC, the building is still standing, and appears to be in use as a storage shed in reasonable condition. Nothing remains of the Piedmont in Honia Path, SC, apart from power poles still standing, delineating the former right-of-way. The station at Taylor's, SC, was still standing in 1987. Though it is now gone. A former substation, including some overhead poles of the Piedmont line, can still be found near the CSX's Enray River Viaduct. Some of the Piedmont's former lines are still in existence, with limited amounts still in operation. The track from Pelzer, SC, to Spartanburg, South Carolina is the CSX's Belton subdivision. The segment from Pelzer to Belton was taken over by the Greenville and Western Railway in 2006. The track from Mount Holly, NC, to Gastonia, NC, and from Mount Holly to Belmont, NC, is still in place. Initially the track belonged to CSX. It is now owned by the North Carolina Department of Transportation, which awarded a contract in May 2010 to Patriot Rail Corporation to restore the track and operate trains along the 12 miles line. The former Piedmont NR Charlotte Terminal Freight Depot was in the Mint, Great 2nd, 3rd Street block, while the Charlotte Terminal Passenger Depot was in the Mint, Great 3rd Street, 4th Street block in Charlotte. Piedmont Ballpark now sits on the former depot site.